Hi everyone. So now I'm going to start with the next chapter on the compilers, which is runtime environments. Okay. So the allocation and deallocation of the data objects is managed by the runtime support package, which consists of routines which are loaded with the generated target program. Each execution of a procedure is referred to as an activation of the procedure. If the procedure is recursive, several of its activations may be alive at the same time. So what an procedure is? Procedure definition is a declaration that in its simplest form associates an identifier with a statement. The identifier is a procedure name and the statement is the procedure body. Procedures that return values are called functions. When a procedure name appears within an executable statement, we say that the procedure is called at that point. A procedure call executes the procedure body. The identifiers appearing in the procedure definition are special and are called formal parameters of the procedure. Arguments known as actual parameter may be passed to a called procedure. They are substituted for the formals in the body. Now what is an activation tree? Control flows sequentially, that is execution of the program consists of a sequence of statements with control being at some specific point at any given step. Each execution of a procedure starts at the beginning of the procedure body and eventually returns control to the point immediately following the place where procedure was called. This means the flow of control between procedures can be depicted using trees. The lifetime of an activation of a procedure P is the sequence of steps between the first and last statement in the execution of the procedure body, including the time that is spent executing the procedures called by P. So it is the time spent in executing the first to last statement in the procedure body, including whatever time that is spent if this procedure in turn calls some other procedures, and so on. Okay. So in an activation tree, each node represents an activation of a procedure. The root represents activation of the main program. The node for A is the parent node for B if and only if control flows from activation of A to activation of B. And the node for A is to the left of the node for B if and only if lifetime of A occurs before lifetime of B. Is that clear? Now what an activation record is? Activation record is nothing but information that is needed by a single execution of a procedure is managed using a contiguous block of storage called activation record. I repeat, information that is needed by single execution of a procedure is managed using a contiguous block of storage called activation record. Purpose of the fields of an activation record is as follows. So I'm going to explain now what is the purpose of the different fields in an activation record. First is temporary values. Okay, temporary values such as those arising in the evaluation of an expression are stored in a field called temporaries. Then there is a field for local data which holds the data local to an execution of a procedure. Then there is a field for saving the machine status that holds the information about state of the machine just before the procedure is called. Then there is optional access link, which refers to non-local data held in other activation records. I repeat, access link refers to non-local data which is held in other activation records. Then there is an optional control link which points to the activation record of the caller. It points to the activation record of the caller. Then there is a field for actual parameters which is used by the calling procedure to supply the parameters to the called procedure. I repeat, there is a field for actual parameters which is used by the calling procedure to supply the parameters to the called procedure. Then there is a field for returned value, and it is used by the called procedure to return the value to the calling procedure. I repeat, it is used by the called procedure to return the value to the calling procedure. Okay. So in my next chapter, I am going to explain to you all error detection and recovery. So I think I'll take that chapter in this session itself, because error detection and recovery is a very small chapter. So let's begin with the next chapter on compilers, which is the last chapter in the entire syllabus of compilers, called error detection and recovery. So programs which are submitted to a compiler often have errors of various kinds. A good compiler should direct attention to as many errors as is reasonably responsible. Compilers should be able to not only detect errors but also recover from them. Even in the presence of errors, the compiler should scan the entire program and try to compile all of it, for no other reasons than detect as many errors as possible. Okay. So good error diagnostics can significantly help to reduce the debugging and maintenance effort. They should have following properties. First is, messages should pinpoint the messages should pinpoint the errors in terms of the original source program rather than in terms of internal representation that is totally mysterious to the user, right? Error messages should be tasteful and understandable by the user. Messages should be specific and localize the program. Messages should not have to be redundant. Okay. So what are the different sources of errors that can come? The design specification for the program may be faulty. Algorithms which are used to meet the design may be inadequately given or incorrect. Programmer may introduce errors in implementing the algorithm, either by introducing logical errors or by using the programming language constructs improperly. Key punching or transcription errors can occur when program is typed on the cards. Program may exceed a compiler or machine limit not implied by definition of the programming language. So all these are the possible use cases or the sources of errors, right? So what are the different types of errors? First is lexical errors. Few errors are discernible at the lexical level itself. Lexical phase can detect errors where the characters remaining in the input do not form any token of the language. So what are the possible error recovery strategies for lexical errors? First is deleting an extraneous character. Second, inserting a missing character. Third is replacing an incorrect character by a correct one. And fourth is transposing two adjacent characters. So these are the different possible error recovery actions, like deleting extraneous characters, inserting a missing one, replacing an incorrect character with a correct one, and transposing two adjacent characters. right? Next type of errors are syntactic errors. Many errors are syntactic in nature or exposed when stream of tokens disobey the grammar rules. Okay, so this could be like missing right parenthesis, extraneous comma, colon in place of semicolon, misspelled keywords, extra blank. So all this might be different syntactic errors. Okay, so what are the corrective measures? Minimum distance correction. That is, we define a collection of error transformations. So we convert the erroneous code into correct code by minimum possible replacements. Okay. Next are semantic errors. Those can be detected at both compile time as well as runtime. So what are the compile time errors which can be detected? Errors of declaration and scope, such as undeclared or multiply declared identifiers, can be found at compile time. Type incompatibility between operators and operands, and between operators and operands, and between formal and actual parameters are semantic errors. What are dynamic or runtime errors? Type of a name can change at runtime. Some type checking must be postponed at runtime. Also, range checking for certain values like array subscripts and case statements and are all runtime errors. Okay. So what are different error recovery strategies? So the different error recovery strategies are panic mode recovery. Okay. So this is simplest method to implement on discovering the error. The parser discards the input symbols one at a time until one of the delimiters or synchronizing token is found out. Okay. While it often skips a considerable amount of input without checking for additional errors, it is guaranteed not to go in an infinite loop. Quite adequate in situations where multiple errors in the same statement are rare. Okay. Next is phrase level recovery. On discovering an error, the parser may perform local correction on remaining input. On discovering an error, the parser may perform local correction on remaining input, and it may replace a prefix of remaining input by some string that allows parser to continue, because at a phrase level we are recovering. So local corrections will be replace comma by a semicolon, delete an extraneous semicolon, inserting a missing semicolon. Just choice is left to the compiler designer, but the replacements must not lead to an infinite loops. Okay, this method may correct any input string and has been used in several error repairing compilers, but difficulty over here is coping with the situations in which actual error has occurred before the point of detection. Okay, the next possible error recovery is introducing error productions. If we have a good idea of common errors which are encountered, we can augment the grammar for the language at hand with the productions that generate erroneous constructs. We then use the grammar that is augmented by these productions to construct a parser. If error productions is used by the parser, we generate appropriate diagnostics to indicate extraneous construct that has been recognized as input. And the last possible error recovery strategy is the global correction. Here we would like the compiler to make as few changes as possible in processing an incorrect input string. Here the algorithms for choosing minimum sequence of changes to obtain a globally least cost correction is the focus. Okay. So given an incorrect input string and a grammar, these algorithms will find a parse tree for related string such that the minimum distance of insertions, deletions and changes of tokens are required to transform the incorrect string into a correct string. With this, we are done with the entire compiler syllabus. Thanks a lot for listening to me. For more videos, please log into virajonlinetutor.blogspot.in for lots of concepts on lots of technologies. See you there. Bye.